In the ancient city of Babylon, where the very air was thick with secrets and the whispers of gods, there existed a power so potent, it could unravel the heavens themselves. This was not just a city built by human hands, but a place where the divine sought to bend the rules of the cosmos, where men and gods alike stood on the precipice of a perilous threshold, one that would stretch far beyond the grasp of mortal comprehension. At the heart of Babylon's dark empire stood Marduk, the mighty and malevolent god who, having slain his chaos-bringer of a predecessor, Tiamat, sought to establish his dominion over all realms, heavenly, earthly, and those unseen. In his pursuit of absolute power, Marduk did not merely wish to rule Babylon or the earth beneath his feet. No, his ambition was far more grandiose, far more diabolical. He desired to transcend the mortal and divine planes themselves. He dreamed of stepping into the realm of the gods, to become not merely a ruler, but the supreme god, to ascend to the heavens themselves. To reach these forbidden heights, Marduk had a vision, an abhorrent and unspeakable vision, of a tower so massive, so powerful, that it would rip open the heavens and tear the veil between the divine and mortal worlds. The Tower of Babylon was not to be a mere monument to man's pride or ambition. It would serve as a bridge between the gods and their creation. But as is often the case with the gods, their hubris carries an unholy weight, a weight that would break the very laws of creation. Marduk, knowing that he needed the labor and souls of the human race to bring his tower into being, commanded that the people of Babylon construct it in his image. The city's inhabitants, bound by fear and blind devotion, set to work with feverish intensity, driven by the god's unrelenting will. They did not know the full depth of his plans. What they believed to be an offering to the gods, a grand monument to Babylon's power, was in fact a living nightmare, one that would usher in chaos and suffering. The construction of the tower, the ziggurat of Babylon, began as a labor of devotion, but the truth behind it was far darker than any of them could imagine. As the tower's foundations were laid, an unnatural force surged through the air. The ground trembled beneath the feet of the workers, as though the earth itself was resisting their divine purpose. Yet, they continued, driven by fear of the wrath of Marduk. Strange phenomena occurred in the city, whispers in the night, shadows that moved on their own, and an overwhelming sense of dread that clung to every stone. Some spoke of seeing Marduk himself, towering and inscrutable, overseeing the construction, his eyes glowing with an eerie light. Those who worked on the tower's structure swore they could feel the oppressive weight of his gaze, and with each brick placed, they feared they were drawing closer to a fate too horrific to understand. Marduk's dark influence seeped into the very fabric of the project. He was not merely seeking to touch the divine, he was demanding it. The tower was a conduit, a vessel through which Marduk could ascend and reach the realms of the gods. He began to manipulate the builders, filling their minds with blasphemous thoughts and twisted ambitions. It was not enough for Marduk to be a ruler of men. He wanted their souls as sacrifices, their labor as offerings, and their ultimate submission as a pathway to power. The workers, driven to madness by his influence, began to see visions of monstrous beings, creatures born of fire and shadow, walking through the streets of Babylon. In their dreams, they heard the laughter of gods twisted by darkness, mocking them as they toiled on the cursed tower. As the tower reached higher into the sky, something began to stir in the heavens. The Anunnaki, the ancient gods of Sumer and Babylon, looked down from their celestial thrones with growing alarm. They saw that Marduk, their ambitious child, was on the verge of reaching their sacred domain, an act that no mortal, no matter how divine, was ever meant to achieve. The balance between the divine and the mortal had been shattered, and the gods knew that if Marduk succeeded, the world would fall into a cataclysm of unimaginable proportions. The gods convened in the realms beyond time, their voices trembling with fear and fury. They could not allow Marduk's defiance to go unpunished. For the very act of reaching the heavens was a transgression that would set the world on fire. They spoke of the ancient laws that had been established before time itself, laws that governed the boundaries between the divine and the earthly. To defy them was to invite chaos, to destroy the order of the cosmos and plunge the universe into an eternal void. It was then that the gods made their decision. They would not allow the tower to reach its completion. They would descend upon the earth with wrath, destroying the tower and scattering the people. The forces of heaven would be unleashed in a storm of divine fury. But Marduk, sensing the growing anger of the gods, would not be so easily deterred. As the tower climbed toward the heavens, he summoned a force beyond even the gods' control, a force drawn from the darkest corners of the universe. His power surged, and for a moment, it seemed as though nothing could stand in his way. But what Marduk did not understand was that in his ambition, he had stirred the very forces of chaos, the primordial darkness that existed before creation. And that darkness, once unleashed, would consume everything in its path. The Tower of Babylon, a creation of madness and divine ambition, continued to claw its way toward the heavens, piercing the skies with its jagged spires. Yet, as its ascent reached the heavens themselves, the earth trembled in unison with the cosmic tremor that began to rip through the fabric of creation. The gods, those ancient beings who had once ruled in celestial harmony, looked upon this abomination with mounting rage. The very essence of Marduk's rebellion had shattered the sacred boundaries that separated mortals from the divine, and for this transgression, there would be no forgiveness. From the highest heavens, where time itself seemed to freeze, the gods gathered. In their fury, they cast their eyes upon the tower, and the vastness of their collective wrath became a force so powerful that the very foundations of the earth would crumble beneath its weight. The moment had arrived. Enlil, the god of air and storms, who had once been the chief of the pantheon, spoke with a voice that cracked the sky, "Let us descend, for the scales of heaven and earth must be restored." With a fierce command, the heavens erupted into a storm of fire and lightning. Anu, the father of the gods, decreed that the tower would not reach its final height. A great whirlwind, as though the breath of the gods themselves had been unleashed, began to descend upon Babylon. Shamash, the sun god, cast down blinding rays, while Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, summoned a violent fury that rained upon the city. But it was not only the force of the gods' anger that would destroy the tower, no, it was something more insidious, more terrifying than mere divine destruction. As the storm raged, something even darker began to take shape. The gods knew that the most effective way to punish humanity would not be in simple ruin, but in a curse that would fracture the unity of mankind itself. The people of Babylon, who had once worked in harmony to build the tower, now found themselves in the grip of an unearthly confusion. Their tongues, once shared in a singular language, began to twist and warp, as though some malevolent force had entered their minds. The language of the gods itself was being torn asunder, and with it, their very understanding of the world. The Tower of Babylon, once a symbol of unity and defiance, now stood as the epitome of divine retribution. The gods, with a cruel and final stroke, shattered the understanding of the people, and in their confusion, the workers were divided. Brothers could no longer speak to brothers. Traders could no longer sell their wares. Priests could no longer pray together. Languages began to twist and warp into countless forms, each one incomprehensible to the next. The people, once unified in purpose, were now scattered, unable to communicate with one another, unable to fulfill the vision of Marduk's tower. Mankind, once bound by a single tongue, had been torn asunder into different tribes, each speaking a new language, each unknowingly exiled into their own unique fate. As the storm intensified, the tower itself began to buckle. The very stones that had been placed with such care and devotion to Marduk's vision were now shattering under the weight of divine wrath. The spires that once reached toward the heavens now crumbled, falling into the city in a cloud of dust and rubble. The once great Tower of Babylon became a monument not to human ambition, but to divine vengeance. A symbol of how defying the gods could unravel not just the cosmos, but the very fabric of existence itself. The gods did not simply destroy the tower, they tore apart the very fabric of unity among mankind. The people, now scattered and broken, would wander the earth, each tribe speaking its own tongue, and though they would build their cities and civilizations, the shadow of Babylon's fall would linger over them all. The curse of Babel, as it would be known, had taken root. The world would never again speak in the same voice. Marduk, once a god of supreme ambition, lay broken beneath the ruins of his own creation. His dreams of ascending to the heavens, conquering the divine, had turned to dust before him. He had been a fool to think he could transcend the laws of the universe, to think that he could ascend beyond the gods. In his madness, he had drawn the wrath of the ancient beings that had forged the cosmos. His punishment was not only the collapse of his tower, but the endless fragmentation of his kingdom. The chaos he sought to control had consumed him. The gods, having witnessed the fall of the tower and the destruction of Marduk's ambitions, returned to their thrones in the heavens. The echoes of their divine laughter reverberated across the earth. Marduk's pride had led him to a fall from which no god, no mortal, could ever recover. Yet, though the tower had fallen and the chaos of Babel had begun, the influence of Marduk's rebellion did not simply vanish with the destruction of the tower. No, his legacy lived on in the fractured world he had left behind. And so, the story of Babylon became one of legend, a warning to all who would dare to defy the gods, to reach for powers beyond their grasp. It would be told across the ages, through the languages of the earth, each tribe retelling the tale of the tower's rise and fall, a tale that would grow more distorted with each retelling. But the true horror of the story, the dark truth at its heart, was that the tower was not merely a symbol of human ambition. It was a reminder that, when mankind seeks to defy the divine, they unleash forces that no one can control, forces that break the very foundations of reality itself. In the end, the Tower of Babylon was not just a physical monument of stone, it was the very embodiment of the chaos that arises when mortals try to play God. Marduk's name would live on, but not in triumph. No. It would be whispered in fear, a reminder of the price of ambition, the price of hubris. And though the tower lay in ruins, its shadow would stretch across time, lingering darkness that would haunt the minds of all who sought to reach for the heavens. The Tower of Babylon was a place of ruin, but more than that, it was a warning. A curse upon those who would dare to raise their eyes toward the gods.